Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. It is me, Known Wells. This is another solo episode, and today I want to talk about this idea of you never know what people are going through. It's something that's been on my mind of late, and I hope you enjoy it. Before we get into it, though, please leave a rating and review of Yumi Empathy in Apple Podcasts. It does help out the show. If you want to just do a rating, I'm trying to get to 200 ratings before we reach 200 episodes, which is in a couple of weeks, which is very exciting. And please subscribe on Patreon. It's $5 a month. You get a bonus episode every month. That's at patreon.com/feelyhuman. And make sure to follow the podcast and Feely Human on Instagram at Yumi Empathy and at Feely Human. And lastly, go to feelyhuman.co for show notes, for if you want to write for the journal, if you want to take my free Feely Human 101 workshop, etc. You go to feelyhuman.co. Okay, let's get into it. So recently, this was a couple of weeks ago, I went for a walk with our dog Maddie, who is a rescue. We rescued her last summer in June, so we've had her for about a year and a half, and she's such a sweet dog and a sensitive dog. She's very sensitive, just like me, just like you probably, and I have to remind myself of that. As a sensitive person, I have to remind myself that she's a sensitive creature too. And I was so I was walking with her, and her sensitivity sometimes presents as, sort of falling back, and sort of nervousness and being sort of hyper aware of everything that's going on around her. And I was feeling frustrated by this. And as I was walking past this group of people who had, there was maybe 4 or 5 people and 2 dogs, and the dog was clearly, like, to me, and I'll get into this in a second, was sort of pulling ahead and barking and quote unquote, not well-behaved behavior. And as I passed them, I overheard one of the people say, "That's a well-behaved dog," referring to Maddie. And I felt good about that. I felt like, oh, great, that's good. And it reminded me that, like, that is a perception that this person has, and I had a perception too that, like, oh, like, this person is clearly not taking care of their dog. I was making a judgment, right? Their assumptions about Maddie is that she's well behaved, and what does that mean, even well behaved, right? It's sort of one perception about it could be that, there's just so many ideas about what that means. Anyways, the little dog that they had was barking, charging ahead, and the human was saying, like, here and no simultaneously. And I judged, I think, in that moment, and I felt better about myself in that moment. And I ask myself, is that a good thing? And I don't think that is. That's not what I want. I want those moments to be opportunities, even if there's not a conversation that happens, opportunities and moments internally for me where I can think on what might that person be going through? What might that dog have been through? What might their relationship truly be like? I was making assumptions, and maybe they were making assumptions too, right? What that really is, it's curiosity. When you say like you never know what people are going through, it's about thinking of a person in their whole self, right? Wholly, that person, their experiences, what they ate, how they're feeling, all of it. Like, how can we like see people for their whole self? It's curiosity, it's imagination. Our assumptions about people, assumptions are armor. They're defenses. They're understandable. Like, they happen because we live in the world, right? We experience certain things. We have past experiences that contribute to our identities, to our outlook, to our framework of life. And a lot of times those things can result in armor. They can result in survival, right? And I understand why that happens. And at the same time, remember, we can hold multiple truths. And at the same time, they can lack or completely exclude curiosity and softness. We hear this all the time. You never know what a person is going through. I said it just a moment ago. But what does that really mean to you? Does it remind you you're not alone? Does it make you stop and pause to think about the whole of a person? Does it guide you toward curiosity and softness rather than rigidity and defensiveness? Because I think, and this is just me, one human, fallible, feely person, I think it should. I think it should guide you toward curiosity and softness. I think it should make you stop and pause to think about the whole of a person. I think it does. I think it should remind you you're not alone. How are we, as a human species, as feely humans, going to make progress in the world if we can't make space for people to be human? I want to be clear about something in that statement, is that I'm not talking about clear acts of violence or oppression or anything of that sort. There's immense intersectionality at play, and I'll get into that in a second. What I'm talking about is those soft moments of curiosity and pause we can take to not make assumptions, to maybe shed some of our own armor we've built up, to abandon any bias and show up with an open heart. Can we do that? I'm not talking about agreeing to disagree. I'm not talking about moralizing. I'm talking about listening, creating safety, and an opportunity to learn. Can we show up in moments with a willingness to discover that we aren't the holders of all the truths? Can we show up in moments and be wowed, be awed, be moved? I also must point out that this framing, this perspective, is very much steeped in privilege. I am a white, cisgendered man, which is important context here. One may feel, for example, not safe to be open and curious all the time because of the systems, racism, capitalism, experience of trauma, etc., we operate within. How can you listen? How can you empower? How can you decenter and lift up? This work of curiosity, empathy, collective softness is not just for our hearts, it's for all of us. So I grew up in an evangelical church that was, at its core, deeply judgmental, defensive, and oppressive toward ideas that didn't align with theirs, people who looked and think differently than them, and cultures that didn't fit into the white conservative paradigm. Its rigidity and clearly homophobic, racist, etc. ideas ultimately made me leave the church. Side note here is that it's interesting sort of being raised in evangelical Christianity because it felt like, oh, this is just the backdrop of you. It's like the default. It becomes part of like the thing, even if like it's just part of the family and it just becomes you, and you, I guess, have to do the work of curiosity to figure out if it is you. And I did that work and realized it's very much not me. So its rigidity, ultimately made me leave because I don't think rigidity is the work. It's not. Rigidity doesn't lead to progress, growth, liberation even. Rigidity is the cause of a lot of it. Rigidity is rooted in fear, anxiety, oppression, ego. Openness and learning and listening and humbling and empathy and curiosity is the work, in my opinion. Letting go of our need to be right, letting go of our need to be centered, letting go of this American ideal of needing to be beacons of strength. We aren't individualists, we are collective softness. This is how we move forward. Not a father who screams, "What would Jesus do?" in your face, which is something my dad did. So I'm another sort of comment here. I'm saying these things. I'm saying, empathy and openness and learning and listening and humbling is the work. I also say, on the other hand, letting go of our need to be right. I'm not saying I'm right here. What I'm saying is, can we be open to listening? Can we be open to learning, right? It's really about like showing up and understanding that there's always something to learn, and we are mirrors for each other if we can be sort of open enough, right? I don't think that it's about finding the thing and holding on to that thing. I think it's about it's sort of ever forward and ever moving. And I think that's how I look at the world, and that may be flawed. And I think the point I'm making is having an openness to see it, to listen enough to learn it, to be moved and be odd, etc., right? So here's a mindfuck. I say all of this and I don't give my own heart and head the softness and curiosity they need. Just this past week, I went on a work trip to Denver, first time on a plane in like over 3 or 4 years, and that was nerve-wracking. I was grateful to meet up with my peers, my colleagues, most of whom I hadn't seen in person in a couple of years, and some I've never met in person before. We're a remote team. This is my day job. Yes, I have a day job, including Feel the Human and this weekly podcast. Anyways, I do a lot. That's a thing that I need to sort of investigate too. Anyways, so all clear signs and roads lead to this perception that they like me, my team. They care about me. They want me as part of the team. And yet, I insist to myself that I don't belong, that they don't give a shit, that I am worthless. One of my bosses even wrote a very sweet, tender note to me. He wrote one for each of us, but he said to me, "Thank you for always bringing yourself into your work. The heart and soul you share is wonderful." End quote. And I read this and I can convince myself it's lies. It's not true. Which is bonkers to me, right? I'm reading that now, and I'm thinking about that now and reflecting. I was like, that's just bonkers. How can I and you create space for softness and curiosity in our own hearts, right? Maybe that's where it needs to start. I'm assuming something of my boss in this case. I am assuming something about myself, that I don't deserve it. Why? Why don't I deserve it? Can I create space for more than just one interpretation here? Can I create space for critical thinking to be discerning of the evidence? And the evidence, like, on sort of one hand, is very clear that they do like me, that I do belong, and yet I don't believe it. Yes, my depression sucks, and it lies to me all the time, which is probably the main culprit here. But I can reframe this and attach my depression to this chemical bullshit that's happening to give myself some reprieve from the 24/7 onslaught of self-hate that I subject myself to. I don't deserve that. And neither do you, Feel the Human friend. You never know what people are going through, and you may not know what you are even going through if you're not open to looking. Let's be open enough to look, to listen, to take a moment to see what might be. Can we do that? Let's do that for ourselves. Let's do that for one another. Let's do that. Okay. That's the solo episode for today. I hope you like it. Let me know how you like it. A great way to let me know how you like it is to comment on the post on Instagram at YouMeEmpathy. An even better way is to leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. Please do that if you haven't yet. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this community, and thank you for being a feely human. And let's be a bit more curious and soft. I know we can do it. Okay, bye.